You're listening to The World Cafe. Hey, I'm Kaleo. When I caught up with Alejandro Rose Garcia, better known by his moniker Shaky Graves, he'd recently had some fun getting back at an online scammer who'd been pretending to be him in an attempt to grift Shaky's fans out of Amazon gift cards. You get the sense even Alejandro is a little surprised that people would think he's worth impersonating. But Garcia's journey over the last 10 years is unlike a lot of musicians. He released his breakthrough debut album, Roll the Bones, a decade ago on Bandcamp, and has consistently seen it sitting atop the most downloaded folk record rankings since then. To celebrate the album's 10th anniversary, he's released a deluxe edition featuring a bonus LP of outtakes and rarities. We talk about the album's legacy, the idea of releasing music as quickly as you make it, and he shares some fantastic stories along the way. Let's get started with a live performance of Unlucky Skin. It's Shaky Graves, recorded live for the World Cafe.
Tasted sweet when I was the bad twin devil himself sat waving me by. All of my tattoos, they were of no use, no monetary values arrive. Ooh, won't be long till I belong.
That is Shaky Graves with the performance of Unlucky Skin, recorded live. It's the opening track from his 2011 debut album, Roll the Bones, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary with a deluxe re-release edition with an accompanying LP of bonus material. Joining us is Alejandro Rose Garcia, a.k.a. Shaky Graves. I'm Kaleo. Shaky, welcome back to the World Cafe.
It's good to be here in a new format.
Yeah, are you tired of this yet? Doing Zoom interviews? Has it become has it sort of like, oh gosh, here we are, 2 dimensions yet again?
I keep thinking that I would be some sort of like expert professional at it. Today went smoothly, but I did one the other day and just was like, I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. I had an iPad hanging off of a microphone stand and couldn't get audio on one and got video on another. It hasn't been it hasn't been all bad. I can honestly say that, but it's a new world, and I'm into looking at it as such.
That's cool, especially having a little bit of a change of perspective with this whole thing. I am always a fan of spying entertaining Twitter, and you are a master of entertaining Twitter.
Oh, thank you.
You recently had a run-in with someone impersonating you, which is always flattering. Can you tell us a little bit about this impersonator?
Sure. Yeah. This has happened a few times, is that like kind of through Instagram or whatever, someone will get a message and it's usually written so insanely crazy where it's like, hello, fan. am reaching out from finally having time to explore fans like you, loving you so much, like reach out to me, let's chat. And people usually send it to me and are like, I think someone's, impersonating you. So I set up like a fake Google Voice number and started texting with this person. And it was basically, the long and short of it is that they inevitably, the scam is that they want you to go and get an Amazon gift card or a Google gift card of some, like for about $200, but it takes a long time to get there. But they're like, I am loving you so much, like it is so great to have fans like you or whatever. Basically, this last time I got fake Shaky Graves, who was spelling my name it's Alejandro, but he was like, hello, it's Alejadn. It was like Alejandro. And I eventually led him on this crazy thing where I got him to only refer to me as hot dog. And so he was like, do you know who I am? And I was like, who? And he said, M. Shaky Graves, celebrity. and I responded, no, the world famous rapper. And he said, yes. And I said, oh my God. And so now I'm referring to myself as Shaky Graves, celebrity, world famous rapper.
You were listening to the World Cafe. We were here with celebrity Shaky Graves, world famous rapper.
World famous rapper.
The new album is Roll the Bone, celebrating its 10th anniversary. Up next, another live performance, Proper Fence. Where was your head at when you were in the process of writing that for the first time?
Well, Proper Fence is definitely the one that's the most like, it was my most attempt at a traditional song. Like it's kind of loosely, like when you listen to a lot of old like actual folk and blues music, it's always translated. So there's like a million versions of so-and-so's version of like the Wagoner's Lad, which is like an old banjo song, or like so-and-so's blues or this and that. And it's like, it borrows phrases from a bunch of other songs like traditionally and then passes them down. And then sometimes it like rearranges the story, like Frankie and Johnny and stuff like that. And I tried to use kind of language in the sense that if you heard someone play this song in the 40s, it would sound era specific. This was kind of the most of that.
Cool. Let's hear a live performance of that right now. It's Shaky Graves, Proper Fence, here on the World Cafe.
Well, just a mile down the road, in the street or two away, lives that freckled missus that I want most every day. There to the home of her father, I'm gonna drag my sorrow feet, tell him she's the woman who can wake me from my sleep. Well, she said, kiss me, I curse the mind for building proper fence, yeah. So I will roll and I will suffer. I'll curse the soil and curse the stones. Keep my eyes a-leaking for that girl does love my bones. Well, I've known her for a year. I've only seen her 7 days. Well, that's 1 week too many to keep a man like me away. Well, she said, kiss me, and Lord, I listened, but I haven't gone back since. I curse the mind for building proper fence. Oh, so 3 years after I found her doorstep, I found her shoes and found her kin. They told me old Grim Reaper done come and turned her in. So I pour some liquor down on that stone that does mark my lost and gone. Well, I won't burn wail and sing her funeral song. She said, kiss me, and Lord, I listened, but I haven't gone back since. And I curse the mind for building proper fence.
That is a live performance of Proper Fence from our guest, Shaky Graves. He just recently released a special edition of his debut album, Roll the Bones. It's Roll the Bones 10, right? Just want to make sure. I just want to make sure. Sometimes I get thrown by the X, and I'm like, oh, Roman numeral, I forgot.
Or it
that.
could be X. For extreme. It's extreme.
Extreme.
Yeah.
Roll the Bones 10 is now available. This is the World Cafe. We are here with Alejandro Rose Garcia, Shaky Graves himself. So the album came out in 2011, but 6-7 years in the making, which, doing the math, that kind of puts you in your late teens, early 20s when you were working on it. I'm curious what your mindset was at that age. Did you know when you started working on it that you were pursuing music, you wanted to make an album, this is where you wanted to go?
No, I mean, it's hard to say pursuing music. You know, it's like I think the moment that I started to write songs, I felt like I was pursuing music, but not like a career. And, you know, I like, here you go, boy. Here's a deluxe career in music. You know, it's always been super therapeutic for me personally. And just like, it feels totally insane to me to start with absolutely nothing, like a melody pops in your head or not, or you're just bored, or, you know, stoned or something, and you're like, I'm just gonna play some guitar, and then you put together something, and then you're like, oh, maybe, and then all of a sudden, you know, maybe an hour later, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours later, there's like a small world, you know, it's like you made a little life, you know, there's a little thing in there, and like a story, and sometimes you're like, oh, this is me talking about, a breakup or something specific. But sometimes you're like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea what this song is about. And in those moments, it feels really transcendent. That's like an actual feeling of true magic to me. And I if I never had to show anybody any of that, I would be okay with it in a lot of senses. And a lot of these songs I didn't really ever imagine that I would show to many people outside of my friends. And I had hoped, I think at the time, either way, I was hoping that someone would want to hear it because I really liked it. I was like, this is cool. And I feel like if someone showed some of these to me, I'd be like, hey, this is pretty cool. And I just was looking forward to, at some mysterious point in the future, when someone would be like, I would love to hear that hissy, weird version of of this other song. I'd love to hear this bizarre thing that you made in your house. And that the time has come. And it happens to be, in 12 years, 15 years later, it's like, yeah. And, this has now been like there's a bunch of weird kind of time travel-y stuff about it. Just in my own mind, looking back at everything, I recorded some of these songs or wrote them like on my first trips to New York City. This was like the age where I was kind of traveling around and finding my legs, and, friends had started to move places, and I'd take those early 20s trips with my friends out to like long road trips and stuff like that. And a lot of these songs are just built off of my friendships and my world, especially at the time, as you're trying to figure out who you are as a young adult, something I feel like I do every year. I'm like, who am I as a young adult? What is this? And now I'm like, who am I as an old young adult? What's going on?
So like thinking about that, like making something and then like now having to revisit it 12 years later and actually giving people insight into that, like one of those musical moments, right, where you're sitting on your couch and like, this might be something, that is a nice part of the sort of bonus LP, is that they can see where your head is at. Like Saving Face, like how did that become Roll the Bones?
That was probably, my guess would be that was like the day or within 2 days of me starting to make the guitar melody for that. So, it's like, and that song, goes hand in hand with the crazy guitar story about, an ongoing theme on this second record is that I interview this guy named Jason71 about this guitar that he ended up putting in my possession. That was a 1932 Gibson L7 guitar that had belonged to his grandmother's boyfriend, who was like a jazz player in Kansas City, and then went to World War II and was like a decorated soldier who ended up saving all these other soldiers in like a bunker fire and horribly burning his hands. And this guitar was like his prized possession, and he would have to re-break the cartilage in his hands when he came back from the war to like play this guitar. Anyway, it's this very like haunted guitar. And the day that I met this guy, I had played a show, and me and him hit it off, and he watched me play and was like, hey, I know this sounds weird because we just met, but I have this old spooky guitar that I've been looking for someone to play, and I think that it would fit your style. Are you into that? And I was like, either this guy's going to murder me or like I'm really going to get this magical guitar. And I went to his house and he bestowed onto me this like priceless object. And I took it back to my house, and it was the guitar that I wrote a lot of these songs on. So that song itself was, and it's kind of how I started to play in open tuning, was because that was where it just settled into. And that recording is me playing that guitar and trying to find the words over this melody that it started to come up with.
Yeah. Also a nice compliment saying, hey, I have a haunted guitar. It seems really like it's up your alley.
I was like, well, I'm super spooky. Haven't you heard my name? Oh, let's go. Let's do that. I'm into spooky stuff. Why not? You got to lean into it,
Sure. Well, let's listen to a little bit of Saving Face, which eventually became Roll the Bones. You can find it on Roll the Bones 10, which is now available everywhere. It is Shaky Graves here on the World Cafe.
She likes to dream that I'm still there, but baby, I am homeless. Damn, I love the moments that got me right out of town. Living with my family down time I was so happy. Why did I leave that hollow ground?
Looking back with Shaky Graves, that's a that's an early version of a song that would become Roll the Bones. That is Saving Face. We're here on the World Cafe with Alejandro Rose Garcia, who you might know as Shaky Graves, talking about this album, that originally came out in 2011. It's the World Cafe. I was thinking, sort of like about, having this idea of music that you make sort of in your bedroom and you don't know if it's going to play for anybody else, but someday you might want them to hear it. Right. I was thinking about, you grew up live in Austin, like musical destination like Nashville or LA. I was curious how much the environment sort of like played into you being interested in music and wanting to share that music. Like if you were in Boise, Idaho, would you still be doing the same? Would you have still had the same thing, or was like really music like in the water and it was sort of like a thing you did?
No, I think if anything, sometimes it seemed a little bit like a turnoff, or it made me want to keep it more private, because I didn't just want to be another musician or someone that was like, hey, I got this sick song and I brought this guitar to this party. Like, you want to hear it? Like, no, I was like, the reason that I kind of even started to want to go by a moniker or anything is that I didn't specifically want anybody to tie me into the music I was making. I didn't want my own personality to be dragged into these sounds, because I wanted them to be, my goal would be to like sneak it on in a car and have one of my friends be like, this is a sick song. And then be like, gotcha, it's me. I play music. I totally got you. You said you liked it. And then they'd be like, oh, I don't like it that much, or whatever. But that was kind of the, that was my goal. I was trying to make something that was certainly not me showing off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that just came from spending years trying to be an actor. And my job description was like having to go into rooms and be like, hello, my name is Alejandro Rose Garcia, and look what I can do. And they'd be like, all right, whatever, And so from that, I was like, I don't care. I was like, the last thing I want is for you to know who's behind any of this stuff, because it's not the important part. I don't want me to have anything to do with it. So, the first info I put out wasn't even like, it didn't say my name. It just said Shaky Graves is a gentleman from Texas, and just had the songs. That was it. And that's what this record was. It was on the internet for pay what you want, for free for 10 years. And I was very adamant about that. It wasn't like I forgot it was there.
Yeah. We're hanging out with Shaky Graves. This is the World Cafe. Up next, City in a Bottle. Do you remember what you were doing when you first started writing this song? Yeah, I know I'm asking you to go into a time travel mode here.
No. This one is all the most specific. This is the first time, my first trip to New York City. I'm like bushy tailed. I was living in my friend's basement for about 2 months, and I was out and I would have to write all the directions down because my phone had like a GPS on it, but it was just awful. It was like the worst phone. And so I had a notebook that I would just carry around at all times, and I would like write down, experiences from everything I saw. And New York was just everything I had hoped for, as a 20 something. And it still is. I mean, I think, taking the old artistic journey out to the big city, as far as New York's concerned, was just like mind bending to me. And so it was one of those first times I was on a subway. I was riding around on the subway, and I met this elderly sex worker lady named Quick Monique the Freak. And she was like really concerned that I had these army boots that I would wear that were like kind of snowproof, weatherproof. And so they were my all-time boots, but they were gross looking. They had really started to fall apart. And she was really concerned about it. She was like, your boots are all messed up, and she's like, I could clean them up for you. And I was like, my mind kind of instantly split at that moment, where I was like, what if I just went full Beverly Hillbillies and just took this lady up on this offer? You know what I mean? Like, well, sure, I've never been to the big city, ma'am. And like, if you want to help me clean my boots, that'd be great. And I just like went off on this tangent in my mind of like imagining going back to wherever she lived And us having this wholesome evening of her like helping me, like teaching me shoe care, you know, like, no, you're doing it all wrong, like sealing my boots. And then I'm like, or, you know, maybe we'd end up dating, or, you know, maybe I'd, you know, try and help her with her missing teeth and, or, you know, whatever it was. And instead it was just kind of ships in the night. I was like, no, thank you. She's like, all right. I was like, okay, bye. And I remember emerging from the subway in Union Square, and it was like the first time I had seen snow in the city, and it was kind of like you could hear people talking about it. It was like, oh man, here comes the snow. And it was like big fat chunks of snow were falling, and I'm in the middle of the city, and I was like, this is incredible. So that's what this song's about.
Possibilities.
Yeah, you could do it all, man. Who knows? I missed a keeper there, you know?
Yeah. Shaky Graves performing live for the World Cafe. It's City in a Bottle.
Well, the cold is a hard time finding me, unlike some folks I know. Yeah, all the men down in Union Square are worried about the snow. 'Cause when your pockets fill with dollar bills, your heart forgets to eat. Yeah, it's a wicked thing. It owns this street. Yes, so fix your boots, so take me home, says quick mode, need for free. I need an easy dollar. Are you trick or are you treat? Well, if she was 60 younger, oh, and I had half a mind, you know, I'd carry her away from that wicked thing outside. Yeah, well, I saw a carried bundle that had fingers, eyes, and toes. As a father of deception, I had never raised a soul. It's a purchase captured secondhand and cherished more than gold. Yeah, it's a shelter from that wicked thing that wanders in the cold. Yes, so fix your boots, so take me home, says quick money for free. Well, I need an easy dollar. Are you trick or are you treat? Well, she was 60 younger, yeah, and I had half a mind. You know, I'd carry her away from that wicked thing outside. Yeah, oh, the water on the dirty streets has all but turned to ice. For to pave the road for wicked things to wander in the night.
On the World Cafe at Shaky Graves, City in a Bottle, recorded live. I am Kaleo. We are reliving some memories with Shaky. The release of his debut album, Roll the Bones, is available now on all of the streaming services, but originally on Bandcamp, where in the last 10 years, it has sold over 100,000 copies, making it one of the best-selling albums of all time on that artistic or artist-centric platform.
Crazy.
It's just bonkers. It's bonkers.
That's
Can
insanity.
you sort of chart the path of how it went from going up on the platform to becoming the phenomenon it was? I know phenomenon is probably a tough word, but it's true. It's a very unlikely story in the world of music.
I mean, yeah, I pressed upload on these terrible MP3s on my like Asus laptop or whatever, and was like, good luck, fellas. But yeah, it was, I mean, I just snuck it on there. One of the big turns was that, somebody at Bandcamp early on that was doing like editor's picks found it and basically put it previewed it one day on the front page. And from then it just kind of stayed, almost like something being kind of pushed against the shore by a wave or whatever. It always stayed like in the top 10 or in the top spot of the best-selling folk records on there for like 5 years, and it never like did anything crazy, but it just kind of stayed there. And then like the site got bigger and then it just kind of, that's just where it stayed.
Did you ever figure out who the editor was who put that on the site for the editor's pick for that day?
No,
maybe send him a Christmas card.
I really should at some point, because they reached out to me at the time, and it was really nice, and and that was like I got to do some weird interview, someone from like a blog, like, hey man, and I was like, whoa, and that's how the internet works. So
yeah.
Someone gonna find you from a blog, man. That's it. And you blog big.
And it worked out. I mean, I'm assuming you wrote the description 10 years ago.
Yeah.
All donations will keep me in clean socks and bread.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then now, I mean, this is the other craziest time travel stuff ever too, is like, so for the release, Spotify did a big, surprised me, and I'm on a big digital billboard in Times Square in the center. I don't know how many people it cycles through, but I got sent a photo and was like, I'm a what? It's like this photo of me glaring. It's like Roll the Bones X, new album out now, and it's in Times Square. And I'm like, if you told 2008 Alejandro, like when he met Quick Monique the Freak, in my friend's basement, wearing the same clothes every day, that the specific songs that he was writing in that basement would be the thing that 12 years later would have a digital billboard in Times Square. I don't know. I don't know if I would believe you, of all the music I've made since and all the like, whatever like big moves I've attempted to do. It's like, it's funny to me that this little fella, the one that I kind of put my heart and soul into and just didn't worry too much about, is the thing that is right now flashing at, some dude dressed as Batman in Times Square.
There's something really, I mean, profoundly cool about it, especially it's your debut album too.
Know,
like
it's crazy. So I mean, that's the that's the thing, is that it's all, this has all really reminded me to be not only grateful, but like, that patience is just so important, like having a vision and not really worrying about when that vision appears is pretty key. I worked on this at its own rate, and I felt like I knew when I wanted to put it out. And as opposed to like trying to get it to labels or, there were a million excuses that I could have not put it on the internet at that given time or whatever. And instead I was just like, see where it goes. And it has gone all the way to right here, to this conversation.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't take any piece out of it. So it's like, who knows?
We're hanging out on the World Cafe with Alejandro Rose Garcia, who as Shaky Graves. The new album is Roll the Bone, celebrating its 10th anniversary. Actually, this might be a silly question, but I mean, what do you think? Like, now it's 2021. Bandcamp is what's old is new again to a certain extent. Bandcamp having this sort of
booming,
like resurgence with their Artist Fridays and stuff like that. I mean, if you had to start over again in 2021, what do you do? What is next? Is it Bandcamp? Is it TikTok? Is it NFTs?
Man, yeah. Are you saying if it was 20-year-old me right now, what would I be doing?
Making a record, and like, how would you get it out into the universe? Well,
I mean, that's the thing, is that like it seems like in the last however many years that either way, that same method of simply, it doesn't matter what the system is, but making something and putting it out immediately is the way to do it. Just like like Billie Eilish or any online success that's like just people putting stuff on SoundCloud and then getting listens and then suddenly it's on the radio is like, I mean, even at a certain point, I don't know where it's at right now, but I remember hearing that YouTube views counted towards the Billboard Top 100. And so that meant that, whatever one of those like one of those viral videos where everyone would like freeze and then do something that like that song was the number one song on the Billboard Top 100 only because of YouTube videos. And so, I mean, the old, and then it's like all of that can get you a Grammy or a what, if that's what's important to you, it's really just pick your poison, choose the platform that works for you, or go the classic, record style or whatever. But, I feel like what it would be is something that my old crusty MySpace self doesn't even know about, honestly. Like it's something that the youths are figuring out that I'm just in awe of, and the fact that I don't know about it probably is the right thing. That's good. The kids are doing something correct,
Yeah, I guess there is sort of that understanding and admiration that they're always going to be ahead of you in a way that just from that generational thing. Like, I'm a MySpace guy too, and things are so dramatically different now. I mean, I guess I would, if I was a musician, I'd love to tap into some of that energy, like of that sort of creativity that they're sort of like, there's new ways to sort of introduce your music to people. But
I mean, and that's the importance with getting stuff out immediately, is that music is, I was listening to something that was just talking about like humor. I went and watched a Pauly Shore movie, talk about old. I watched Encino Man because for some reason I was like, I think it was first me and my lady watched a Goofy movie, and then we were like, Pauly Shore is so crazy. And so then we were hanging out with some other people and they were like, yeah, I don't know when the last time I've even seen Pauly Shore is. And then you go and look and you're like, these movies are crazy. We watched all the trailers for all of his movies and we're like, these are so crazy. And it's just him playing him in all of these different vessels, like we were trying to decode what he was talking about. We're like, what is grindage? What is he talking about? And then we're like, and he keeps talking about nugs. And we're like, is he talking about weed? Weed? And it's like, no, it's nugs are women and grindage is food. Anyway, this is like, but then at a certain point, people were like, we're not interested anymore, and I heard this whole thing that was just talking about how humor has these very, like, comedians can't do covers of other comedians, like humor is very of the moment. And in some ways, musical styles or things that like become hot are exactly like that. And that hitting people with something that you feel compelled, a sound to get out it's super imperative that you get it out in time, because it's like when I put out, Roll the Bones, it's like, it wasn't long after that all this other stuff that I don't love, that's very much of the vein. Well, like Americana wasn't a term, and I don't personally identify very well with that term. And I in no way would have ever set out to make Americana music. In no sense of the word. You know what I mean? Except for it being America-y or what, I don't know. But
Trust me, I tried to solve that riddle with alternative. 10 years earlier. What the heck is alternative?
Indie? Yeah. I mean, to a certain degree, it's like, yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, alternative's a great example. It's like, what's Static X or something? I don't know. You know what this means. Great. We're talking about Pauly Shore and Static X here on the World Cafe.
In 1998.
1998 is back, baby. But... it's like right after that, it was like all the stuff like Mumford & Sons and Lumineers and stuff. And that all became like radio music. And I instantly was like, man, if I had waited any longer, I don't think I would have tried to put that record into the world. Or, it lost its spin a little bit for me personally. And that's just how taste goes. You know, it's like people are like, you know, just now finding something that I was working on in 2013, and they're like, I don't know why you didn't stick with that style. And I'm like, I do. I certainly do. It's like, do you want to eat the same food every day, every year? Do you want to, you're going to listen to the same music? I mean, you might your whole life, but like, man, it's just like, if that's your gig, enjoy it. But I gotta just, you know, check out the building. I'm wildly curious about stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, if I was in my 20s now, I doubt I would be making the same music that I was making at that point. Maybe it's possible.
You never know. We're revisiting Roll the Bones with Shaky Graves. It's available now on all the streaming music services, and potentially at your local independent record retailer.
That's right.
You know, that's pretty cool too. So do something throwback. We've got one more track. We've got one more track to revisit, a live performance of Georgia Moon. What would you tell people listening in about this song before we get into it?
This is a song too that, you know, this was on that fated trip to New York City that I went to. First time I was driving with my best friend in the world, this guy Wesley Stewart, and we grew up together. And we were taking our Grand American road trip, and we were driving through Tennessee, I think at the time, and we were like, oh, we should try and stop and get some moonshine, because we're in Tennessee, right? Like, that's what you do, right? We can buy that, right? And it's like, no, you can't go buy moonshine. But we saw a liquor store and went in. I think we both had, like, you know, terrible fake IDs, and they didn't care at all. You know, we're like, we're here for moonshine. They're like, yeah, I bet. And we rolled into this little liquor store, and there was a display thing that had a Ziploc bag, and it had a can of 7-Up and this jar of corn whiskey in it. And the whole thing was called the Hillbilly Highball. And it was like $15 for this Ziploc bag. And we were like, let's go. And so we bought it. And the jar of corn booze is called Georgia Moon, moonshine. And we just thought the whole thing was so silly that we started immediately writing kind of a tongue-in-cheek, like, On the Road Again song. And we had imagined it to be just this terrible full-on country song. And we were just kind of giggling. We we tried to open it while driving and just immediately smelled like a frat party had exploded in this car. And we're like, we're idiots. You know, we're like, what are we doing? It was like raining a little bit. We're just like, this is terrible. We're awful. So we wrote this song called Georgia Moon about, you know, this youthful kind of dumb experience that we both got such a kick out of. And then when I got home, I wrote this guitar melody and was like, I wonder what lyrics will go over this. And then I was like, oh, and put this joke over this earnest melody. And suddenly it became like a song about the moon and traveling. And, you know, it's based off of like the jar itself of this thing has two slogans. And one of which is less than 30 days old, which is like exactly what it tastes like. And then the other one is Shine On. And so that's kind of the chorus of this song. It's based off of this dorky booze.
Let's hear it. It's Shaky Graves, Georgia Moon, here on the World Cafe.
Doing 85, going north on 81. Won't see my baby till the rising of the sun. Yet Tennessee keeps warning me, if I booze it, I might lose it. So shine on, Georgia moon, shine on. Well, it's hard to see the road through this rain and all the fog. Yeah, this Appalachian driving leaves me tired as a dog. But this Mason full of moonshine is gonna keep me mighty strong. Shine on, Georgia moon, shine on. Yeah, shine on, Georgia moon, shine on. So loosen up the lid and open up the throttle. Yeah, well, you wanna see the light, ain't gonna find it in a bottle. 'Cause when I'm sipping on a jar, the road ain't quite so long. So shine on, Georgia moon, oh shine on. Yeah, shine on, Georgia moon, shine on. Yeah, go shine on, Georgia moon, shine on.
It's Shaky Graves with Georgia Moon, recorded live. This is the World Cafe. The new / old album, Revisiting Roll the Bones, the 10th anniversary, comes with an accompanying LP with a lot of really cool stuff, demos, alt tracks, an interview,
Right.
and more. It's available now on all of your streaming music services, of course, originally on Bandcamp. Alejandro, thank you so much for coming on, sharing some great stories, revisiting that time with us. And when this whole thing blows over, which doesn't feel like we're too far away from, please come and see us in Philadelphia. We'd love to see you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. In another 10 years, when I release the rap rock version, Roll the Bones Triple X, we'll do it again.
That is Shaky Graves. This is the World Cafe.